Whether you knew it or not, you just landed on episode 2 of a multi-episode series all about marketing food and beverage products. And in this installment, we'll be talking about packaging. Throughout the numerous interviews I've done with career food and beverage marketing experts, packaging, unsurprisingly, came up over and over again. So to make sure we got you the absolute best advice on the subject, we brought the father and son duo behind the multi-generational creative agency DePersico into our own studio in Haddonfield, New Jersey. After 46 years in the business, these guys know packaging. So, in addition to walking through some case studies demonstrating before and after projects, the team at DePersico are going to share some incredible insights with you. We're going to cover things like how to keep your on-package messaging as concise yet effective as possible, some insights on the do's and don'ts of making certain claims on packaging, brand advocacy, brand positioning, and best practices for positioning lines on packaging, what human psychology and philosophy can teach us about persuasive messaging. I know Mr. Aurelius would be into hearing about that, and what a 45-year-old packaging agency has to say about getting onto the shelves of retailers. Who would know better than these guys? Partial spoiler alert, has a lot to do with effective sell sheets. Are you stoked for episode 2 of our food and beverage product marketing series? Do you want more amazing niche content just like this? I know you do. Then you know what to do. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, don't forget to comment, and get ready for this next installment of the Niche Marketing Podcast with DePersico Creative in Philadelphia. And we're back with another episode of the Niche Marketing Podcast. I'm so delighted to have our guests in from just over the bridge in Philadelphia. Where are you guys from in Philly?
Westchester.
Yeah, Westchester. So right between Philadelphia and Lancaster, midway point.
Fantastic. And we have James and Paul from DePersico? DePersico Creative.
Right pronunciation, wrong emphasis. Yeah.
Okay.
Very close.
And we're stoked to have you. You guys are going to be part of our food and beverage experts marketing series. And you guys eat, sleep, and breathe packaging design.
Yep.
And today is also our first episode with a co-host. We have my colleague, Stephen Picanza, also in the mix today.
Yeah.
Stephen, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Look at us on this side of the table.
Yeah.
Usually we're on opposite sides, but now we're on the same side. I'm digging it.
It feels good, man.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
Yeah, glad to have you here. And since we're going to be talking about packaging design today, Stephen has an in-depth background in the area of branding, design, creative messaging, and so really couldn't do the episode without you.
I appreciate it. Let's go.
All right. So James, Paul, again, excited to have you guys. Could you tell us a little bit about how you got started? I know it's a family business and it goes back some ways.
Yeah. We were incorporated in 1977, but the business was actually started by my grandparents even before that, just like out of their house. But Paul can really speak to the early days of the business because I was, much later.
You're a wee lad.
Yeah.
1977, we incorporated, rented a place, kind of grew after that. My wife signed on in the business. We were married and, a year or two later. And, we've had, my mother worked in business, my sister, lots of them. And, anyway, it's been a long road. In 1989, my parents retired from the business. I bought the business from them. And then James started, I don't know, 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, probably about 10 years ago, right out of college, as I was in my last year of college.
So we have my sister also works in, she's creative, or a creative family, and we all like food. Our chief designer is my nephew, or son, and who just had a baby. So shout out to Nick.
He's on paternity leave right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Yes.
They actually just moved into their house last week and then had a baby this week.
Wow. Is that
Doing it all
the
at
next generation of the agency right there?
Yeah, we're thinking
he's
it will
the next
be.
generation.
Well, the
Nick
generation after that.
Yeah, the baby. Yeah. Hopefully. So that's about it. I mean, that's our history of getting started. We've always been food and beverage. We love food. We're big foodies. James and I are both cooks or chefs in our own right.
Awesome. That makes 4 of us.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, we're
cool.
big foodies.
Yeah, we
and
help
love to
develop
cook.
a lot of, like, when people come to us, they say, "Oh, I have a new product I want to develop. Can you help me?" And a lot of times we get in there and it's like, product, comparing it to the other tastes in the market, you need a little more hit here. You need a little more
Our
of this,
first
a little
step
more
is
of that.
always try the product, because it's something that, it's fun working in food and beverage because we can do that and we can try the product. It's not like, if we were doing package design for like women's razor blades or something like that, it's like, well, we're not, maybe we could try it, but I don't know if I'm going to get the same kind of input. But if it's like
Like the
a
movie,
pizza
what
or a
wine?
barbecue sauce or something,
You're
like,
all in.
yeah, absolutely. I would eat it for a couple of meals and then give them some feedback and say, hey, maybe you could sweeten this up, or maybe you could make it a little spicier or something like that.
Yeah, we usually try to coach them, because we basically, what we do well and what we're known for is we get people to try the product. When it goes on the shelf, we inspire trial.
Yeah.
So they see stuff on the thing, and people, first it catches their attention, and then it creates, by looking at the package and having the package tell a story, it creates that desire to try it. After they try it, it's all on, the packaging helps with some, but it's really the product is going to, fail or succeed if people come back and become loyal users, tell their friends about it, use it, buy it.
Yeah, that's what we always tell clients, is that we'll get you the first sale, and then it's on your product to be good enough to get all the repeat purchases.
That makes a lot of
But
sense.
there's little sense in us designing a really great package, get that first sale, and it never gets sold again. That brand will never grow. We'll never do more business.
Yeah, then it
with
makes
that
us look
client.
bad, because then it's like, oh, the product ended up failing, and it's not our fault. It's because the product wasn't good enough. So we always try the product, if we don't feel like it's where it needs to be, help them refine it. And then once it's in a place where we're like, now if we do a really good job on this package, this is really going to take off. That's always, where we want to be, is
we really don't want to
working
waste
for good
anybody's
products.
time and money on a product that we know when we taste it is not going to succeed in the marketplace. So
Have you worked with products that you loved and that you got the trial, but then it still flopped because of bad marketing or bad customer experience?
Never.
Well, not.
I can't think of anything. I mean, people have
There was one product
retired
that
and
did
given up on making it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to point out. There was one product that we actually have an example of here that's called Yummy Health. The brand was called Yummy Health, which is a great brand name, because with food, there are so many regulations on what claims you can make. Like the word healthy or health, or good for your health, or anything like that is so regulated that you really can't put it on things like
you for using.
like maybe if you were selling like straight raw broccoli, maybe you could get away with it. but this is like a snack product, so you certainly could not put health on there. But kind of the loophole, if it's part of your registered brand name, then you're okay. You can put it on there. So they got away with the brand name Yummy Health, which was great. But the problem with that was a company that was kind of like a pet project of the wife of like a very wealthy lawyer. And then she, went through the whole process of designing it. And then she kind of was like, I'm on to my next pet project, and then gave up on it. It had no funding and then disappeared, which is a shame, because it really could have been successful.
Yeah.
It was a cool product. But
so that happens.
Other than situations like that,
when we design something, we know it's going to taste good, that it's going to be able to compete in the marketplace. They don't fail.
Yeah, your instincts are pretty good in that regard.
Yeah.
Well, so let's take a couple steps back and start from the beginning.
Okay.
If I'm an aspiring food and beverage brand, I've got a consumer product good, and I want to get it on the shelves, before we even talk about successfully getting on its shelves, which I know is its own challenge for sure, maybe perhaps the biggest challenge, what do you guys need from me or my team to do what you do? I mean, and to be clear for the audience, you guys specialize in specifically the packaging part of things. So for you to do your job,
kind of like, here's a little slide that there's 5 core things that you have to do.
Perfect.
And this is the right order. So you see the package design is actually the last stage.
Yeah.
So kind of the thing that our clients need to come to us with is basically just they need to know their product, and they need to know what their goals for it are. And then we can basically help them from there, because the very first thing that they need the actual product. But once they have that, then the first thing you need that kind of starts as the foundation for everything is your positioning. So how you want to present yourself to a consumer. So we often think of the first couple of stages as positioning, which is what you want your consumer to understand about your product and your brand, and then your creative strategy, which is how we're then going to convey that message.
The positioning is, what's your unique selling proposition? How are you special? How are you better?
Yeah. If you're a
in that
barbecue
way?
sauce, there's a lot of barbecue sauces out there. What makes you special? Are you smoky? Are you from a really old school Southern tradition? Are you, a mustard based sauce, which is, combining honey and mustard and ketchup in a way that's, unique and not something else out there in the market. So we always want to kind of focus in on how are you going to differentiate yourself amongst a sea of competitors, because there's so much out there that you're usually entering a pretty competitive space, no matter what product you have. We've worked with a couple of clients where their product is so unique that the challenge is not differentiating yourself from your competitors. It's saying, look, this is what I am because my product is so unique. We have another example in this deck, if we get to it, of something that's totally radical. And that was more of a situation where we had to explain to people, what even is this? But most of the time,
part of educating.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Educating.
And how it was a product where you kind of had to take a couple of steps before it was edible. So you really couldn't eat it right out of the tin, but it was sold along, next to cream cheeses and things like that. But if you tried to use it like a cream cheese, it would really be pretty undesirable. So you had to take a couple of steps. So it was the tricky thing was getting enough information onto the face of the package that people could get an idea of.
Yeah.
Look, don't put a scoop of this on your piece of toast and just eat it straight up, because it's really going to be an unpleasant experience. You had to spread it onto your toast and then melt that like in a toaster oven or something like that. And then it was really phenomenal, but we had to get that across on the package. So that's kind of an unusual case. But most of the time, it's a product that people are already familiar with, like a seasoning, a spice blend or something like that. So how do you differentiate yourself amongst McCormick's and Durkee's and all the big spice brands? We have another slide in here that's of spices and kind of how we did that and how we differentiated those and made them really unique.
You want to pull that up while we... And are you guys creating, or is the brand usually coming with an idea of the product positioning, or are you making recommendations? Are they?
It all varies.
It varies. Yeah. Some have a pretty good positioning in mind. Some have a really good product and a really terrible positioning.
Yeah.
So we got Flickr.
Got Flickr. And are you oftentimes like adding on like reasons to believe onto the packaging as well, like to strengthen that positioning?
Yeah. So that package has to kind of basically, you're going to tell a story with the package design. It's going to leave people with a certain feeling, that desire to try, but it needs to tell a story and it has to be in the right order and has to flow. So many times you'll see packaging and you got something in this corner, something in that message down here, it's all over the place, like little islands. You need an eye flow where it's just going to be gracefully, your eye goes top to bottom, left to right. And so this is one that has a lot of information on because there's nothing to show in seasoning.
So this is an example of kind of what we were talking about as far as like a really crowded market, seasonings, and how do we want to differentiate? Some of that reason to believe that you talked about, Stephen, was, for example, just a little thing like on all of these, we have it labeled by Chef Henry.
Yeah.
So like immediately you're already thinking like, okay, so this is put together by someone who kind of knows what they're talking about. These are seasonings developed by a chef. And then one of the things that we noticed was kind of lacking in a lot of the seasoning space was a lot of seasonings tell you just what they are, but not really give any kind of flair or give any kind of details on when do you want to use me or anything like that. So, if you look at something and it says like lemon pepper seasoning, you kind of are like, okay, well, I guess I could put lemon pepper seasoning on chicken maybe. And maybe
hold their hand a little bit and show them the way.
We want to, So we gave these some additional information. This unique seasoning and herb blend gives meats a mouthwatering, savory taste everyone loves.
Yeah.
Just to like, oh, okay, this is perfect.
It becomes a no-brainer, like savage seasoning. Like if I want to get a little savage tonight, like I'm gonna, let's get vicious. I'm gonna go there. And I actually love like that kind of secondary messaging down there because, like John, you were saying, it makes it idiot-proof. You know what I mean? Like what you're getting out of it.
It tells a story.
Exactly. It helps them get the best out of it too, right? Which is critical. You talk about. You had mentioned earlier that you help get the first sale. It's kind of up to the product to get the second, third, and fourth sale. Well, I can see how this would help aid that second, third, and fourth sale because you're getting the optimal use case out of it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah.
And when on the shelf, right, with McCormick's and with, just generic red pepper flakes or whatever, right? This is it's gonna stick out. Like backyard barbecue. I want to have a backyard barbecue. I think I need that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Seasoning, that is something you're supposed to put on seafood. You could put it on a piece of chicken if it was just called lemon pepper, sweet seasoning or something. And you try it on a piece of chicken and maybe it'd be all right, but it wouldn't be great. You put it on a piece of fish. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, now that is something I really want to come back for.
And for the listeners, in case you didn't see the sliders, pay close enough attention. It's seasoning.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. With some wave design in there. We're going to really differentiate each of the individual varieties.
For the client and for you guys to know that Chef Henry's Secret, the one in the blue there in the front, absolutely awesome. Best season I've ever had. I use it all the time.
Okay.
What's it made out of?
You'll never,
what's the ingredients?
There is something that's unusual. I don't know. Well, it's going to be on the ingredients panel.
Yeah.
There's oregano in a couple different combinations. Not something you usually.
There's Mexican sage in there too.
Yeah.
Nice.
It just gives steaks and stuff it's unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
We order it constantly. Have it in my RV. I have bottles of it everywhere.
Mm.
The second step was around like the strategic territory, right? Mm-hmm. And is that something that your team is coming to the table with, like some unique insights to try to like land like something like that big idea, or the client usually have it?
Occasionally a client will have something that they want to do in particular, but generally that's on us.
Yeah.
Especially with smaller clients or more startup clients or people that are not already succeeding. Sometimes clients come to us and they just want to tick the needle up a little bit. But a lot of times people come to us when
bigger clients want to small, just make me look good for a marketing job.
But especially when it's a smaller client or someone whose product is really not succeeding, they rely on us to help come up with some of that strategy. And a lot of that is about how to take that positioning that either they don't have that we develop with them or that they already have in mind and figure out how to best communicate that. Like on those seasonings where we added that by Chef Henry's to give that kind of ethos. I like to think of, I went to school for English and philosophy. So I had a lot of classes, a lot of education on rhetorical speaking, rhetorical communication, and using rhetoric in speech is all about trying to convince someone of a point, basically trying to persuade someone over to your way of thinking. And that's essentially what package design is doing. It's saying, hey, let me convince you that my product is the best thing on shelf. So a lot of the same techniques are useful in package design as are in any kind of rhetorical speech. So I like to think of different points that we're including on a package as the classic pathos, logos, and ethos. Your emotional appeals, which I kind of in food include like the gut reaction, which is oftentimes appetite appeal. It's that just kind of natural, like, oh, that makes me hungry.
And that's under the which?
I can consider that pathos, kind of the emotional appeal.
And they were again pathos?
Pathos, logos, and ethos. So pathos is your emotional appeal, which is either like, ooh, that's something I feel good about. Like if you see on a package, farm raised, pasture raised chickens or something, like, oh, okay, I feel good about that. Yeah, or this.
Providing hope but never tasted so good because they give to orphans in Africa.
Yeah, it's harder to see on this screen because it's white on yellow in this first one. But yeah, it says providing hope never tasted so good, and then that story is expanded on the back where the owner of this brand has he builds orphanages in Mozambique. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of your pathos appeal. Yeah. It's appeal. It's like, okay, I feel good about buying from this brand. Or sustainability messages, for example, are a pathos appeal.
Sure.
Where it's like, yeah, I'm happy to buy this brand. I'm happy to support that. Things like small batch or homemade can oftentimes be that too. Like I'm helping a small company. I'm not helping a major corporation. Logos is those logical appeals like low fat or things like keto friendly, no high fructose corn syrup, things like okay, I get why this is actually going to be something I want to have, based on what I know, based on knowledge, not
practical.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe the speed at which like a caffeine or energy enhancing ingredient might kick in.
This cooks quickly. This pizza is made in 4 to 5 minutes. Like
more functional.
Yeah, exactly.
Messaging.
And then ethos is kind of a little bit some of the more ambiguous thing, but that's like establishing your reliability. Like that's kind of the reason to believe, like, why should I trust what you're saying? And some of that is like that by Chef Henry, like, okay, so I get like, okay, this is coming from a chef, like they've curated these ingredients, or that's oftentimes, I think a lot of brands will include this without really knowing why, but like you'll see like established 1975. Yeah. That's an ethos statement.
Yeah, trust.
It's like, okay, I've been around for long
like
enough.
Your firm, right? Been around since, 3 generations.
Yeah,
They must know a thing or two.
Exactly. Yeah, that's an appeal to that ethos.
The instant credibility or trust factor, social proof too. The same thing.
I love that. We're getting a great social media soundbite out of that. That's for sure.
Okay, great.
So back to here, the creative strategy is after you figure it out, we've had our meeting with the client. We've really asked a lot of probing questions, just to informally find out where do they want to be in 5 years? How do they feel about their brand? What do they want? What kind of persona do they have personally? Do they want to be part of the brand themselves personally, or are they planning on just building it and selling it, to some big company shortly? We kind of get all that background information because that will help drive, a good positioning for them, get them in a good place. So then we develop the position, which we already talked about. Once we know where we want to be, like here is the goal, here's we want to end up, here's our destination. Then creative strategy is like, what are all the elements you can use on the packaging to get there, to convince people? And that's the creative strategy part. So it's like, we use.
Let me jump in there. Could you elaborate on what are the elements of the package? I feel like we could unpack that a little bit.
Okay. Well, there's the logo, the feel of the package. Is it
the physical feel?
No. Like that Pathos element. Like when you look at it, what is the first thing, like, oh, that's a really high-end product, or like, oh, that's a really value-oriented product. I'm getting a lot for my money.
That's a natural product.
Yeah, like, oh, that must be organic. Even though if we can't say organic, we can look organic. We can look like we belong in Whole Foods, even if the nutrition facts and the ingredients don't necessarily support that. We don't have the ability to put a organic bug on there, or a non, when I say bug, I mean the little icon.
Meet the FDA standards to actually put, but we can certainly make it look organic and imply that, without them having to pay. And
so that's what we mean when we say the feel of your
gotcha.
package.
So the logo, the feel, are there other elements that
words that go on it?
Sure.
Any elements on the package?
Yeah, and when we talk about later in this of the 5 core needs that you have to develop the package, we include creative linguistics, which is actually a term that we got when the marketing manager of Kellogg's came to us and asked for some, what she called linguistic creativity. They didn't actually want to do anything on their package design. They were just asking us for copywriting help, essentially, to come up with the right words and statements that they could use. And then we liked that term so much, linguistic creativity, that we kind of co-opted it and flipped it around and called it creative linguistics, rather than just calling it copywriting, because we felt like
different.
That almost undervalues it, whereas the words that you're including on the package are so critical. They really need to be brief and pithy and poignant and make a strong point without expanding a lot, because you obviously don't have the space, especially in the front of a package.
Or the attention span.
Right. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you really have like 4 to 6 seconds to convince someone to at least be interested enough to pick up your product on shelf. So we include that as part of the creative process just as much as the feel and the design and the appetite appeal. The creative linguistics,
the
actual verbiage
is
super important. Yeah.
Yeah. And that even includes, how does a word sound? Is it a soft sound? Is it, depending on what your product is, you don't want a crunchy sounding word if you're describing something on a very smooth, soft product, like a cheese ball bite or something, you don't want to use.
Yeah, or even something very aggressive. Like you wouldn't come out with like Kraken yogurt or something.
Right.
It kind of has a strange kind of
counterintuitive, and it ultimately all comes back to that audience persona too, right?
Yeah.
If it's yogurt for the alpha male, maybe Kraken works good, but if we're trying to appeal to the nuclear family and
sometimes going super out there can be the core of your positioning. Like, this is not a client of ours, but it's kind of big right now is the water brand Liquid Death.
Right.
They obviously, that's their whole thing, is being very counter to what you would assume about water. Their Liquid Death is super obviously like dangerous sounding. Their whole theme is like looking like it's some kind of toxic chemical, and then it turns out it's just sparkling water. It's interesting that they've gone completely the opposite angle, but that is their whole positioning is going in that opposite direction.
Yeah, they zagged.
Yeah,
shout out
exactly,
Marty
which can
Newmeyer.
occasionally work, but only if I can't imagine it would work for many things other than a plain sparkling water where you don't really have to explain the product in any kind of way.
On number 3 on identity, we put say on identity rather than logo development.
Right.
Because it really incorporates everything. The logo is just part of it, but it's the feel of the package, the color of the background.
And with logo as part of your identity that goes kind of beyond your logo and is at the same time kind of part of it, we almost always like to include what we call a positioning line. Some people say a tagline or a slogan, but we think of those as kind of separately. They can exist on their own, whereas a positioning line is almost always locked to your logo. And it's just something that is a really, like maybe it's 5 to maybe 7 words max. It starts to get a little long. That is an encapsulation of as much of your positioning as we can get in a really short, pithy single statement.
3 to 5 words.
That's going to stick with your logo. So, we love a brand where the brand name is going to carry a lot of weight on its own. Like we have we worked with a client where their brand name that we came up with for them was, this is the example, was Same Day Filet. It was a frozen fish product. So it already starts to do a lot of work just with that brand name. But then we included the positioning line, caught, cleaned, and flash frozen in hours to kind of further encapsulate like what is different about this? What's the positioning of this? And it was that these fillets, they were caught, they were frozen on the boat before they even made it back to shore, so that you're getting and then retained frozen that entire time. So you're getting it as fresh as it could possibly be. So we always like to include a positioning line, even on something where the brand name is doing a lot of weight, but especially on things where they're not. Like if your brand is called Douglas's or something like that, that's your brand. You could be, Douglas's could be selling, pizzas, or it could be selling air fresheners, and there's no way to know. So having that positioning line there locked to the logo, if you say Douglas's, fine wood-fired pizzas or something, you kind of immediately get a sense of what you're doing every time you see that logo, and that positioning line just lives with it.
If we get the opportunity to help the client come up with the logo name, which I'd say we do, what percent, like 70% maybe?
Probably about that.
I think it's a lot better because we make sure that the logo then does some heavy lifting.
Yeah, the name sub-communicates.
Right, exactly.
Communicating something good. And sometimes you can really get away. You could do some powerful things with the logo, like that Yummy Health. Do I even have Yummy Health on there?
You do have it on here.
The naming is huge. I've been involved in a few of those projects myself. And the amount of work, by the way, that can go into choosing the right name can be pretty tremendous.
Oh, yeah, for
As
sure.
in, I love that you drew the distinction, Paul, about you shy away from calling things logo and you refer to it as identity. All true brand marketers know the amount of work that goes into a visual identity or a logo or color scheme or fonts can be a tremendous amount of work, that's
right,
often overlooked by folks that try to do it themselves, and that can ultimately cost them. Today's episode is brought to you by The Agency Guide. Are you frustrated with an underperforming marketing agency? Who isn't? Are you unsure about what marketing channels to invest in and who to invest with? Maybe you're just fed up with the overpromising and under-delivering of marketing agencies. Fear not. You need to contact The Agency Guide. The Agency Guide, or TAG, represents a vetted pool of 200 plus vetted marketing agencies and consultants, and they will matchmake your brand's specific needs with these trusted marketing professionals for free. That's right, for free. You don't need an expensive agency search firm. You need The Agency Guide. For over 10 years, TAG's experienced marketing consultants have been providing pro bono consulting and matching brands with vetted agencies based on needs, budget, timeline, location, even your personality. They're marketing professionals. They're agency matchmakers. They're The Agency Guide. To learn more, visit www.theagencyguide.com today.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the identity is so important and so intrinsic to your end product that your consumer is going to see, that it used to be, back in the day, even right around where I started about 10 years ago, but even before that, especially, where logo design was often done in isolation. That would be like the first step is like, okay, create the logo. Let's run that up the ladder. Let's get approval from everyone on the logo. And then let's develop the package design. And what we've realized, like I said, about 10 years ago and going forward, is we almost never do that anymore, because that is so key as your identity, not just as a logo in isolation, that when you develop the logo on its own and then go to try to create a package design, you're kind of creating these artificial constraints on yourself, where now you have to design a package around a logo. You have to make a package that's going to fit an already established logo.
That looks like a slug.
And you,
like drop logo here, and like could be.
Yeah, you've already
brand.
established. Is it a really rigid font? Is it a soft font? Is it using serifs or not using serifs? Is it encapsulated in some kind of shape, some kind of marquee shape, or is it in a circle? Is it in an oval? Is it a very vertical or horizontal logo? And then you go to work on the package design and you're like, okay, now I have to figure out, I have got colors established. I've kind of got a look established already that I need to work into the package design. And it just doesn't make sense to do it that way. We've realized that the identity is so core to the package design that it really needs to be developed all at once. So we create our packages and our logos all as a cohesive whole.
This is an example of identity. I put this slide in as opposed to the logo. This is made by, Cheese Butter. This client, it's the same client, and this is a different name. This is by Chef Henry, but you can tell that the look is, you saw these, it's all in the same family. And Cheese Butter is also a third product line they have. They all have a kind of a cohesive feel to them.
It's a branded house, I believe, right?
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you can tell they all have these little icons in the background. And, that's it's more than just the name. The name is very small. And here the logo, Cheese Butter is there. These are sub-branded Cheese Ball Bites. But the feel is cohesive.
And I see you made that conscious decision actually to minimize the logo and emphasize what the product is.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because Cheese Butter was their original product and it was also their brand name. So that's the thing that has the registration on it. And it was exactly what their original product was. That product was Cheese Butter. It was a butter and cheese mixture. That was actually the product I was referencing earlier. That's kind of confusing. How do you
spreadable?
Because the butter kind of congeals when it's cold and refrigerated, so you have to melt it. And then the cheese melts in with the butter and it becomes a really great product. This is still under the Cheese Butter brand, but there's no butter involved in here at all. This is purely a seasoned cheese with inclusions. So we wanted to minimize Cheese Butter. We still wanted the branding on there, but we wanted this to really kind of stand on its own as a cheese ball bite, because it's like your traditional like cheese ball that you would have like as a centerpiece at a party or something, full of like fruits and nuts and things like that, but smaller, miniature, bite-sized, with a blend of cheeses, really robust inclusions. So we wanted to say, get people the idea of like, okay, it's by Cheese Butter, but there's no butter in here. Think of this as a cheese ball, but as a bite.
I'm getting hungry, guys.
Well,
we just actually had
if you want a snack, definitely recommend checking them out.
If you got any of these on hand, make sure you leave some behind.
Yeah. 4 of these things. They're great for like staving off the hunger. Yeah, this also is an example of, the client had just the cheese balls, different flavors. I think he had 5 flavors, whatever. But we looked at them too, so this could be big, this could be huge, because it's a little portable pack, tear off, you could take them with you. It's a great stave off the hunger if your dinner's running late or whatever. And you could take them on the road with you, camping, whatever. I said, so I said to him, gee, could you put some little meat in there, like a beef jerky in with the cheese, and have a charcuterie collection?
Yeah, because charcuterie is so big right now. That's very trendy right now.
Yeah.
Charcuterie plates and cheese board
We
plates.
always keep an eye on what's trending.
Well, maybe we should talk about that a little bit.
Cheese boards, charcuterie.
Trend analysis. And is that simply just, like first person, what you see when you're out there?
Yeah,
or is there more to it
pretty,
than that?
It's fairly osmosis based, just kind of being in this space, seeing what people are talking about. If things are big enough online, we're going to encounter them. And that's like the case with charcuterie plates and cheese board plates and things like that, where those are really they're kind of hot right now. So the idea of being able to give people an opportunity to, have your easy at home charcuterie plate where all you have to do is buy this package, open it up and dump it out, and boom, you've got a charcuterie plate ready to go. Normally they're, a pretty expensive thing at like high-end restaurants and things like that. But we said to the client, like, hey, this is really big right now. I think you have the capability of doing this. Why don't you give it a try and see how it comes out? And it turned out great. He had to buy one piece of equipment for it, but ended up being worth it. That was hugely successful, the charcuterie option. And it became one of the better selling of the products.
He also said cheese boards where you don't have the meat. There's a lot of people that don't eat meat or don't want to, but you've got fruit and nuts. Of which cheese is a great combination. So you see like on the right, on the blue one there, those are cheese boards. There's fruits and nuts that go with them. And they're in the pack. They're in a separate little thing. So it's really great. It gives you a more full snack. The cheese balls themselves you have to go online and buy some because once you try them, you'll always buy them.
Let's talk about getting on the shelf and standing out on the shelf.
Sure.
So what advice can you give aspiring food and beverage CPG creators, makers? Think small business now.
I'll tell you the thing that nobody will tell you. The stores won't tell you.
You're not going to get it here, folks, on the Niche Marketing Podcasts. Let's hear it, Paul. We can't wait.
The stores will tell you trying to get your product into a store, and it's a struggle. You can't get it in. They won't put it in a good spot.
They'll tell you, oh, we've got no room for you right now.
We're already filled up with this product. Sorry, and whatever. What they're not telling you is like they won't ever say you have an ugly baby. It's a lot of the reason these stores want to make their store look good and their shelves look good. These different category managers in the stores, they want their store to shine. And if your product doesn't look good, they're not going to tell you that.
Whoa.
They're just not going to give you the space.
So that's really interesting on a number of levels, right? I mean, I think the general premise of, okay, we want the packaging to look good, that's not a surprise, right? But the fact that a buyer is thinking aesthetically about how their store looks at the collective whole, literally how the visual of their shelves present, and that they might make a decision on what products to stock simply based on like how you appear on their shelves amongst the other products they have is really interesting. And I think it's worth repeating at this point that, this is from decades of experience that you guys have.
Right.
Decades of experience have shown that the buyers want their shelves to look as good as possible. Okay.
I'll show you one here. This is Seabest. The left-hand side is the four. They had that. The product did not change. So they had that. They had the shrimp. They had like 5 products they were trying to get in the Northeast corridor up and down the state. We only work in the U.S. market.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really do Canada and any other countries. Anyway, they say, well, we can't get into, we don't know what's wrong. We put restaurant quality really big on the package and we can't get on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't want our product. And we said, well, I think we see the problem.
Ugly baby.
Ugly baby. Which we didn't tell them. We will show them, there's a difference. So instead of saying restaurant quality, we made a package design that looked like a cool boutique type of restaurant. We made the logo more of like a signage, like you'd see like a seafood restaurant sign. We put restaurant quality is much smaller. So the word didn't have to be big. It just had to have the right feel.
Yeah, we have a little seascape in the top, almost like, you're sitting out on the patio of a seafood restaurant. You're looking out on the water. It's plated up like it would be in a restaurant. Very clean table, like you would have at like a higher end restaurant, almost kind of a white tablecloth thing. To basically, if we're going back to that logos, Pathos, Ethos thing, that restaurant quality really wants to be a pathos. It wants to be the feel of restaurant quality. but they almost treated it like it was a logos argument. Like,
Practical.
yeah, they wrote the word restaurant quality and were hoping that kind of gets to people, but it really can't be a logical thing. Restaurant quality is like, what does that even really technically mean?
That can be subjective.
Yeah, it's more of a feel. So you need to treat it like it's something that's pathos. That's a feel. So that's what we transferred it to on the new design.
We did the
Love that.
editorial plate type, and there's some, all little subtle things, but putting that plate at an angle instead of just straight on, giving it an editorial kind of like recipe book type feel to it. Just all the little things work together. So they went from they got all the 5 products in the stores all over the East Coast. And then they just, like, because of that success and the stores were buying the stuff, they added 39 products. When they didn't add 39, they totaled 39. So it's 39 minus 7, whatever it is.
Well done,
So
gentlemen.
a lot of other products.
Thanks.
So really put them on the map.
That was a fun success story and a fun
the product
project.
didn't change.
And any other advice? Because I know from the other interviews we've started to do in this niche how critical this getting on the damn shelf is and like how hard it is. So, and I know you guys are designers, that's your focus. But any other just inside baseball, inside knowledge about how to get on a shelf?
Well, this is a little outside of package design, but it is something that we almost always do with all of our clients. It's important to have a really effective sell sheet. That's kind of your main intro piece of material when you're going to a buyer in a store, because I mean, it's great if you can get
a
it.
trade show and the buyers, the chain buyers are walking around. They may be impressed, whatever, but they're going to forget. You got to have a good sell sheet that's going to remind them.
And so much is also done
was.
digitally these days, and telecommunications and things like that, where it's awesome if you can get an in-person meeting, actually in front of a store buyer and let them try the product and have a conversation like that. But so often
they always try the product, and you just mail it to them, they'll taste it.
But so often you can't get an in-person meeting, or you need an in to even get to that point. And that's where the sell sheet comes in, where when we develop a sell sheet, it's using a lot of the same components as the package design. Obviously, the look of the brand is still the same. We're showcasing the actual product and the package of the product on that sell sheet. But the communication is tweaked a little bit, because now it's not a story of this is why you as a consumer are going to really enjoy this product. Now it's a story of this is why this is going to be so successful in your store shelves. This is why your consumers are going to like this, and this is what it's going to do for your store. And telling that story in a concise space, just like we do really concise communications on a package face, is so critical, because now we're shifting who we're selling to, but we're still doing that same sell.
Right.
Totally. So can you give us some tips on how to appeal to those buyers on those sell sheets?
Yeah. So one thing you can do is if you have something that's targeted at a specific demographic, that's something you could speak to. If you have something that's targeting something that's trendy, like charcuterie plates and things like that, store buyers are also super involved with like what is hot right now, because they want to stock those things. So they'll, if charcuterie plates and cheese boards are hot right now, they will know that. So if you can speak to that and kind of nudge them in that direction, like, hey, look, we have something that's really popular right now, or sourdough is really big right now. If you have something like a sourdough component, or you're utilizing fermentation, that can be something, you kind of nudge them in the direction of like, hey, this is trendy right now. Or in the same way as you would tell a consumer, like, hey, this is why I'm so unique, talking to the buyer about, this is why you don't have anything else like me on the shelf. Here are the unique facets. You probably don't have anything else that's, a seasoning that's as smoky as this seasoning. Like, the smokiness of this seasoning is at least worth you giving a try, because this is really going to be something that people are looking for right now. Smoky flavors are really popular right now, and there's not a good option in the dry seasoning section. People have to go to, liquid smoke and things like that. But here, I've got something different. Include me on the shelf, and all of a sudden, now people will be in your seasoning aisle when they wouldn't necessarily be if they're looking for something.
Yeah, the
to
two
add
main
the
things
smokiness.
are make the store look good, make that store's category look good by being an attractive thing, and like that maybe some other store, the next store down the road, doesn't have. So that's important. And here's an example of that. If you were in a grocery store, and this is the area, the in-store bake area and stuff. And there's a product. And they just have a little label on here, and it's a big clamshell, and all of the food looks basically the same. It's some kind of pastry with a bunch of white icing on it.
Clamshell, if people aren't aware, is that plastic enclosure.
You know?
Yeah, sure.
Or there's just a sticker on here that holds it shut and tamper resistant. And we said, well, you know, it's not giving something different. So we said,
it's not making the store look particularly good. This is in the in-store bake section. So it's like the store's kind of putting its, you know, trying to present it like it's unique to that store. Like, you know, it's something that they're putting out there, and it's really not looking like anything special with it just in a plain clamshell, little sticker on there. So we said, let's answer the questions that consumers have and really make this something special. It's still going to be in the clamshell because they don't want to change that. They'd have to change their equipment and everything, but let's get a cardboard sleeve on there so we have some more space to communicate about the product.
Like a window on the sleeve so you can still see, it doesn't block it too much.
But what is the main stumbling block that people have with picking up a pastry? Because all the pastries, they had like at least a dozen different kinds of pastries, and they basically all look the same top down. You know, they look like you've got a white glazed icing and then you have a product name. So the question is, what's in it? What does it look like? What am I actually going to experience? So including the cross-section cut of the pastry as an image on there to give people an idea of like, look, this is the amount of filling. This is kind of the robustness of the filling here, the lemon or the raspberry or things like that, as well as giving it a little bit more of a creative name, a little bit something more interesting, like wildly pecan.
Like wildly pecan. Okay, what does that mean?
What was that, Paul?
Yeah, it says wildly pecan Danish instead of just saying pecan Danish or cheese Danish.
Just to give it a little bit of more of a fun twist.
Just
a little flair.
Little
yeah,
things
exactly.
like that really help enhance it, make it more fun and indulgent. And
gives
special.
the brand some personality as well, right?
Exactly, yeah, which is something they were really lacking before. That's also why we completely converted the logo into that identity, into something that was, you know, he named it after himself, Jay Skinner. And if you're going to name it after yourself, give it a little personality, you know, make it look more like it's his actual signature.
Yeah. Who the hell's Jay Skinner?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's give him a voice.
Yeah. And if you're going to present yourself as a baker, then get some personality in here so I can believe in you as the baker of these products.
I love it. We only have about 5 minutes left, guys.
Oh, okay.
And so with the last couple minutes, could you show us any other designs that you think have a specific story behind them that would be valuable to our aspiring food and beverage CPG product launchers?
Okay.
You want to do sandwich things? That's a pretty fun one.
All right. This will be an example of when you do successful positioning and products are positioned right and the rest of it, it can be very successful. This was a product they had, well, this slide will tell it.
Yeah.
Bimbo Bakeries was the largest bakery in the world.
But
up in Canada, they had a product called Burger First.
Yes.
Just a thin.
So Burger First which was like, it was doing okay. Bimbo is mostly in the US, and you would know it mostly by its brand names, not by Bimbo. They have one brand that's called Bimbo, but they also own, you know, half the bread aisle. They're Arnold, they're Stroman, they're Thomas's English Muffins.
Okay.
They're huge in the bread aisle, but everything is branded something else.
Yeah. Wow. Entenmann's, shout out to the local company Entenmann's. At least they were local,
yeah, but owned by Bimbo Bakeries USA,
now
located out in Horsham and then out in Texas as well, and then ultimately owned by a company in Mexico City.
Oh,
yeah. So they eat up all the little guys. But this was one of their products under their brand Arnold, and it was only in Canada. It was called Burger First, and it was doing middling. So they came to us and said, "Hey, we want to launch this in the US, but it's not doing great in Canada. Can you help us fix it? Can you help us make it something that's really going to be successful?" And
we work with a brand manager, kind of brainstormed together, and she liked our creativity. We said, let's give it a healthy positioning. I'll call it sandwich thins.
Because the whole point of it is it's a very, very thin, like bread substitute, like bun substitute, basically. I'm sure you've probably seen these products all over the place.
Now, these were the first ones that ever came out. So they started basically a new category. So that's what the package basically looked. Hardly any advertising. They didn't put any advertising behind it. It was just the packaging.
Yeah, it's rare that we can.
And they had a little bit of like positioning lines on, some point of sale. So this was the main thing, the positioning. We created a new shape to help you change yours.
That's really
We're not
smart.
saying this is a diet food. We're not saying, but we changed the shape to help you out.
It's really good, guys.
Thanks.
That's a really clever
and it was hugely successful. It really hit the market of what people were looking for. It was not, it wasn't body shaming. It wasn't like saying like you need to cut down on your calories or anything like that. It was just a subtle message of, hey, if you're looking to, you can still have your burger, you still have your sandwich. That's another thing. Instead of positioning it for burgers, which are a little bit more of an unhealthy thing, we moved to sandwiches. The appetite appeal we showed was a turkey sandwich with some lettuce and tomato, more healthy direction. So for people that are looking,
certain people wanted a burger on it. I'm like, goes against the positioning.
Right. Is a little bit.
So they did it with the burger, but then I said, look, let's at least do one variety with the turkey sandwich. Be a little more healthy. And then they switched everything. Didn't put burgers on any of it. Switched all the healthy sandwiches. But it went to 89 million in the very first year, just on the East Coast. After that, they rolled it out to the West Coast. Same product, just rolled it out to the West Coast, and it went up to 250 million.
Yeah, and then it inspired. Yeah, there's now thin buns are a whole category. Then this was the first
every
venture into that.
Company makes a thin bun of some kind. Yeah.
That's a fantastic success story and a great one to end on. I could chat with you guys all day.
Yeah,
this was a lot of fun.
Scratch the surface. I got 50 slides here.
Well, so for somebody that wants to get in touch with you and get the rest of the 50 slide presentation, Paul, how do they get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so our website is a great place to go as kind of a first stop. It's DePersico.com. DEPERSICO. I know we're a little bit of a complicated name.
It's on
.com.
the screen too.
Yeah, and from there you can email Paul directly, Paul@DePersico.com. You can email me, James@DePersico.com, and you can call us directly. And we pride ourselves on we're the ones who answer the phone. We're the one who's responded to the email. We're your first point of contact. We'll do the designs with artists and copywriters and things like that behind the scenes, but we want to be involved in every one of our projects. We don't want to pass you off to some account manager or something like that. So you reach out to us and you get us directly, and we will be the ones who reach back out to you. We will have those conversations.
We'll work with you through the whole product. We don't pass people off to an account manager. We used to do that.
Yeah.
We don't do that anymore.
As someone that
directly.
Yeah, as someone that represents almost 300 different marketing agencies, I can say with certainty that owner operator account management model makes a massive difference in customer satisfaction and ultimately the output. So that's fantastic, guys. Well,
and that phone number there is my actual my desk phone. So, but if you call it and just leave a message, because I could be on the phone with another. We do a lot of stuff on screen.
And if you call it, you'll talk to both of us because our desks actually are butted up right against each other and the phone sits right in the middle. So someone calls us, we hit speaker and we're both talking to them. So you always get both of us. Two for one deal.
Screen sharing and talking.
I can speak from first person experience. That's how you guys operate.
Yep.
Well, thanks so much, guys. We're excited that you came and gave us all a primer. And thanks so much. We'll talk to you. We'll see you soon on the next episode of the Niche Marketing Podcast.